And then how enjoyable was the company to do business with? And we've been measuring this customer experience index for the last 5 years. And what you see on the screen here is our consolidated data. And the dark blue bars are data from earlier this year. And if you look at the numbers of companies that offer positive customer experiences, we find that it's just a third of the companies that we end up surveying. And it's also really interesting to note that the companies who deliver excellent customer experiences has been dropping year over year in the last 4 years. And you also notice that since we've been measuring customer experience, the scores haven't moved very significantly within the last 5 years. Now, let's drill into this data a little bit more. If you look at customer experience scores by industry, what you see is that there's great variability between industries. And it's probably no surprise to any of you on the phone that retailers, hotels, parcel delivery services do the best at delivering experiences in line with customer expectations. And right at the bottom of the pile, you've got the health insurance plans, you've got telecom, internet service providers, TV service providers, wireless service providers, and airlines as well. And by the way, this is just a small subset of all the data that we have at Forrester on our site. And you can actually drill into the individual customer experience scores for the companies that fall into one of these verticals. So what you see is, again, there's great variability between scores, between industries, but look at as well the length of the horizontal bar. What you see is there's great variability between industries. And what this means is that even if you're in an industry, there's shining examples in your vertical that are doing well at delivering good customer experiences. And you should look to those companies to model yourselves against or to try to do better than them. So, we know that customer experience decision makers tell us that great customer experiences are very important to their business. We know that companies are not doing a good job at delivering on these great customer experiences. But then you have to ask yourself, why do you really care about delivering great customer experiences? And you care because a happy customer is one that is satisfied with the interaction that they have had with you. And customer satisfaction correlates to customer loyalty. And a loyal customer is one who will buy more from you, who will stay loyal to your brand for a longer time, and who will recommend your products and services to families and friends. And so what we can do, and we have models at Forrester to do this, is we can measure customer loyalty across these 3 dimensions: additional purchases, churn reduction, and word of mouth. And we measure the increased revenue due to these 3 dimensions for all 40 verticals that we end up surveying. And in every case, we see there is a correlation between increased loyalty and increased revenue across these 3 dimensions of additional purchases, churn reduction, word of mouth. And this is the data, or just a subset of the data, that you are seeing on the screen. So net-net, why do you care about delivering great customer experiences? It's because it's good for business. It will quantifiably impact your top line. And it will also help, again, differentiate your products and services from your competition. So then, what's the tie-in between customer experience and customer service? And it's that customer service for a great number of companies is the cornerstone to their company's customer experience strategy. And then when we went and asked customer service managers, VPs, decision makers, what their top 3 customer goals, customer service goals were, 40% said that improving the customer experience was their most important goal. Another 40% said that it was their second most important goal. 21% said that it was their third most important goal. Those are the statistics that I'm reading right at the top of the slide that you're looking at. And then when you look at where customer experience falls compared to all the other goals that a customer service organization has, customer experience really led the pack by twice or more of the votes compared to all the other goals that a customer service manager has, which is, for example, reducing customer service costs or improving agent productivity. So, you have to ask yourself that we know that delivering customer experiences is important, that it has a quantifiable impact on revenue, and we know that companies don't do a great job at being able to deliver these customer experiences. But then why is it so hard to provide these customer experiences that are in line with customer demand? And it's because you think of your customer service organization, and they have one of the toughest jobs in a company. So a customer service, whether it's an agent, a supervisor, a manager, or a VP, every interaction that they have with a customer, they've got to walk this pragmatic balancing act between the needs of the customer and the needs of the business. So let's focus on customers just for a minute. So customers, like all of you on the phone, you know what great service is, and you expect this level of service from any company that you interact with over any communication channel, over any touch point that you end up using. So you want to ask, what is the type of service that you expect from companies? It's not Disney-esque customer experiences. It's quick, efficient, effortless service. So here's some more statistics from Forrester. 45% of you say that you will abandon your online purchase if you can't find a quick answer to your question. 66% say, and I can relate to this statistic, that valuing my time is the most important thing that a company can do to provide me with good customer service. So what happens when customers don't get the service that they expect? In 2/3 of the cases, actually, customers are disappointed. And they're very quick to voice their disappointment. And in the world that we live in, this disappointment ends up getting amplified by all the social media channels that are in play today. And when disappointments get amplified, they can eventually, if they're loud enough, end up impacting your brand. So what you're looking at here is our social technographic ladder from Forrester. And what it does is it shows you how users interact with social media. And it's a way to loosely quantify the impact of negative comments and how they have an impact on your brand. So on the left side of the ladder, you've got statistics, you've got numbers for B2C companies. On the right-hand side, you've got statistics for B2B companies. So let's look at the top red box called creators. These are the folks that after a poor service experience go out and tweet about it, blog about it, will go to your site and negatively rate you, review you. In the B2C world, that's 23% of you. In the B2B world, it's 32% of you. But the damage is done in the lower red box, the spectators category. In the B2C world, that's 68% of you. In the B2B world, that's 80% of you. And spectators are the ones who are reading these negative blogs, negative tweets, negative Facebook posts, negative ratings and reviews, and are using this information to help guide them in their purchasing decisions. And so the damage is done again because there's a broad number of spectators and that end up reading all the negative sentiment that then the spectators use to frame their next buying decision or interaction decision with the company. And so this helps quantify the impact of social media and the propagation that social media has on your brand. So let's go back to the customer service leader or organization who has to walk this tightrope balance between customer needs and business needs. So as our data shows, companies know that good customer experiences are important, but given the economic times that we've lived through in the last 5 years, companies are still more focused on cost control measures than actually improving the customer experience and in a transformative way. All of the projects that we see customer service organizations engaging on are very pragmatic and really do help balance the cost control measures with a slight increase in moving the needle on customer experience. So one thing that companies have done, and they've started to do this a long time ago, is they've looked at reducing costs by engaging customers on channels that are alternative to voice. And because these channels, for example, email, chat, web self-service, are really a fraction of what a voice call costs. But then you have to ask yourself, are these the channels that customers actually want to use? And this eye chart that you're looking at is our data of channel usage by demographic. And by the way, these slides will be available to you after the webinar, so there's no need to copy down any of these statistics. But the takeaway on this set of data is that the phone channel is still the primary channel that all generations use the most frequently. But it's very quickly backed by the online self-service channel, help or FAQs on a company's website. Then it's followed by the email channel and then the chat channel. So customers still want to use a broad array of communication channels. But what's a lot more important is the way that communication channel usage is changing year over year. So what you have on the screen here is channel usage from 2 years ago compared to channel usage measured in December of last year. And so what you end up seeing, our the data from 2 years ago is the light blue, and data from December of 2011 is the dark blue bars on the slide that you're looking at. So what this data is showing is that, for example, the phone channel has decreased in usage for customer service by 1% in the last 2 years. Help has increased by 5%. But look at what's happened to chat, for example. Chat has jumped from 19% to 37% in 2 years. That's almost a 20% increase in 2 years. Look at communities, peer-to-peer discussion forums. It's jumped from 7% to 27% in 2 years. That's a 20% increase. Twitter has gone from 1% to 19% in 2 years. There's a whole set of communication channels like screen sharing, virtual agents, SMS that weren't even on our radar 2 years ago. So the takeaway from this set of data is that communication channel preference is changing very rapidly. And you need to do due diligence on who your customers are and how they want to interact with you. And because their behavior is very quickly changing, especially as mobility enters the picture. More than that, there is no magic formula for the types of communication channels that you need to offer to your customers because it's very dependent on your brand. For example, if you're a financial services company that caters to high net worth individuals, the phone channel may be the most important communication channel for you. Twitter may not play a role in your communication strategy. However, if you're a retail brand that caters to a youth audience, all the new channels of SMS and the social media channels and chat and online self-service may be the most important ones for you. So again, the takeaway is, first, communication channel usage is changing very quickly. And then secondly, you need to figure out what communication channels resonate and support your brand proposition to your customers and choose to invest in those channels. But channel mix is only one part of the equation. What you have to do is put yourself in your customer's shoes and think about the experiences that your customers want to have with you. So what you're looking on the screen here is an extreme example of a customer journey, of a customer interacting over multiple channels with a company to be able to get the answer to their question. In this example, it's the example, again, it's an extreme example. It's a customer who's looking for a new phone and a new plan. And so what she's doing is she's browsing the community forum, then browsing the company's Facebook page, emailing the company, going back to the web and looking at the company's website, tweeting a question to her followers, navigating an IVR using her existing phone, where she ends up getting out of the IVR, is transferred to a service agent who realizes that this is a sales question, not a service question, and she's encouraged to go visit the store down the street from her to talk to a sales agent who's able to provide her all the information that she's looking for, and it gets and she receives it via an SMS on her current phone. Again, extreme example. But again, the takeaway is how is it that a customer wants to interact with a company? First of all, they want to interact using the channel of their choice, whether it's voice, social, or a digital channel like email and chat. They want to be able, a customer wants to be able to start an interaction on one communication channel like email and continue it on another communication channel like the phone without having to repeat themselves over again and restart the conversation. They want to be able to receive the same data, the same information, the same content over all the different communication channels. And they want the company, the agent, to know who they are, what products and purchases they've bought in the past, what kinds of service issues they've had in the past, so the company can personalize and contextualize the interaction to the particular persona and the situation at hand. And this is a lot harder to do than it appears because this type of engagement is quick, is efficient, is personal, contextual, and consistent across channels and touch points. And in most companies, this is very hard to do because in most companies, a customer's journey is very fractured. Customers have to start a conversation in one communication channel, for example, like a forum or email, and can't easily escalate to another touch point or another communication channel without having to restart the conversation. And this ends up impacting the experience, the overall experience that the customer has with the company. So why is it so difficult for companies to provide this level of consistent experience across channels and across touch points? It's because I always say most companies are a mess of disconnected technology. So what you're looking at here is actually the technology ecosystem of a major U.S. telecom carrier. And these agents at this company have to use over 40 different applications in the course of their workday to be able to service their customers. And these agents have to hunt and peck through all these disparate systems to look for the right information to solve their customer's question. And it's no wonder that different agents follow different processes to help customers, and customers end up getting different answers to their questions, again, because there may be duplicate data stores all over the place. And these technologies have been implemented as point solutions, and companies haven't done a great job at tying them together. And here's some data that quantifies that. It's when we ask customer service leaders what upgrades they're planning in the next 12 months, multi-channel integration, being able to tie these communication channels together so that you can start an interaction on one channel, continue it on another, falls low on the priority list of most customer service organizations. And last time we measured it, it was at 21%. And so what this means is that customer service agents who are helping customers out don't have access to this universal customer history, which is details of all the interactions that a customer has had with a company over all the different communication channels that the company supports. And what this means is that this unified customer history allows an agent to understand what's been communicated to the customer in the past. And they can leverage this information to help build on the knowledge and relationship that they are establishing with the customer. And most phone agents in most companies only have access to prior phone interactions. Email agents have access to only email interactions. So in many companies, agents aren't empowered with a good view of customers and all the interactions they've had with the company. The other problem that's impacting the ability for organizations to deliver great customer experiences is the social media problem. So customers, a couple years ago, started expressing their opinions, asking questions over the social channels. And companies were forced to address these social inquiries because if they didn't, it would end up impacting their brand. But adopting social media technology was typically done in a really reactive way, not in a way that helped augment and extend the value of the level of customer service that was being provided to their customers. And what happened is that many times these social channels were added in a silo that were disconnected from all the rest of the customer service ecosystem. And then more often than not, they were staffed by marketing people, or even worse yet, outsourced to their PR agency, and not to their customer service agents that had access to the history of prior customer interactions. And then these social channels started to be seen as backdoor entryways into customer service organizations. And what they did is they bypassed all the established processes and SLAs that companies had worked really hard at establishing with their customers. And then the agents, the customer service agents who ended up getting some of these social inquiries, ended up getting overwhelmed with the volume of interactions that they were receiving over these new channels and didn't know how to adequately respond to them. And then there's the problem of not only exploding communication channels, but exploding touch points. So now customers like you're using the web to interact with companies. You're going to a company's website. You're using a company's social presence like Facebook, perhaps Twitter. You're interacting with companies from your mobile devices or tablets. You're walking into a store, calling a call center. And you're interacting with companies over these multiple touch points and multiple communication channels through the entire life cycle of interactions that you have with a company. So you interact with companies to discover the products that they have, to research a company's product, to compare a company's product against a competitor's product, to buy the product, and then to learn how to use the product. Then if you have a customer service issue, to get help from the customer service organization. And you think about how these sales, marketing, customer service activities tend to be organized within a company. It's that they tend to be very functionally siloed. So the way that a company offers these discovering and researching and buying interactions are very different than the way that a company provides customer service activities. And why is this? It's because sales, marketing, and customer service in most organizations are very functionally siloed. They don't share data, they don't share business processes, and they don't share technology. And what this means is that the customer gets a very fractured experience as they're walking through the journey of learning what products a company has, to buying products from you, to getting customer service from you. And so there's a whole other layer of complexity that's arisen. And at the heart of this complexity is mobility. And the way that mobility is really changing the way that we interact with companies and that we actually conduct our business. So let's first look at our workplace. And our workplace is becoming less and less defined. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you left home, you went to an office, you sat in front of your desktop, you worked all day, you went home. Now, look at the way how people work. And these are the Venn diagrams on the left-hand side of the screen. Just about a third of you just work in the office. 16% of you just work from the road. 11% of you just work from home. However, just about two-thirds of you, 62%, work from more than one location during a work week. And a third of you work from all locations, office, home, and road. And the devices that we're using to work, to use, to interact with companies is also changing. So long are the days that when we went to work and just worked on our desktop. Still, I was surprised at this, is that 80% still use desktops. But almost half of you also use laptops. 29% see your smartphone as your primary device. 8% of you see your tablet as your primary device. So, here's some more statistics about the prevalence of mobile devices. So, across all generations, 93% of adults in the U.S., and this is a base that we ended up surveying of close to 58,000 U.S. online adults. So our data shows that 93% own a mobile phone, and globally these numbers are very similar. 38% own a smartphone. And then we have the breakdown on the left-hand side of the screen by demographic, from the very young, from the Gen Z to the golden generation. And then you think about the experiences that your customers expect. Whether they're interacting with you from the office, the road, or working from home, whether they're using a desktop, a laptop, a mobile phone, a smartphone, or a tablet, and think back to that diagram of the customer journey of that woman who was looking for a new cell phone and a new plan. Well, again, the tenets that I explained in that slide apply here. Your customers, all of you guys on the phone, you want to be able to receive consistent, reproducible experiences from a company. You want to be able to receive the same data, the same information, same content. You want to be able to start an interaction on one touch point and escalate it seamlessly to another touch point without having to restart the conversation. And every time you interact with a company, whether it's over your cell phone, your tablet, web self-service, you expect that the company will follow the same business processes, that you'll get the same type of experience from a company. But what's the reality of these experiences? And in many cases, your company already has mobile applications that your customers can download, or you may have mobile sites that you can access. And if customers have issues or questions that they want to ask a company, more often than not, they'll either go to your mobile app or mobile website and search for an answer to their question. And if they're lucky, they're going to be able to find an answer to their question. But what happens in those cases where a customer starts off in a mobile self-service interaction and then needs to escalate to an agent-assisted interaction? And so if this happens, it's often like the experience that I'm showing on the right-hand side of the screen. What will happen is that your mobile app will take you just far enough, and then you'll get presented a phone number. And then you'll dial that phone number, you'll get connected to a contact center agent, and then you'll have to restart the conversation all over again, because none of the context of the self-service interaction will have been passed to this customer service agent. So, to sum it up, we know that customer experiences are important. They help increase customer satisfaction, customer loyalty. They can impact your top line. But we also know that delivering great experiences is really hard to do. First, customer expectations have risen. And then there's the problem of exploding communication channels. And companies are working really hard to provide these consistent experiences across these channels. And then there's the explosion of touch points, with mobility driving this explosion of touch points because of the prevalence of mobile devices and different form factors and operating systems, and whether it's a smartphone or a tablet. And there are ways, vendors have been thinking about this for a while. There's ways to provide your customers with these excellent mobile experiences. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve to explain how Jacada can help you provide great mobile experiences.
Thank you, Kate. This is Lee again. I want to thank you for your valuable insights on delivering customer service through multiple channels, including the mobile channel. And so on that note, we'll pass it over to our next presenter, Steve Herlocker, SVP of Marketing at Jacada. Hello, Steve.
Hey, thanks Lee. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for giving us your time today, just as Kate had said. And Kate, thank you very much for really expressing the challenges we face, right? It is, as you said, a challenge of exploding touch points, channels, and competing projects inside companies. At Jacada, we've had the pleasure and the luck to be able to talk to a lot of companies over the last year as mobility has evolved, and really talk about this problem and how do people see the right way to solve it. So I'm going to spend maybe 10-15 minutes with you today, talk a little bit about the learnings we've had and what we've seen as sort of best practices that come out of that, and how do you go about solving this. I thought I might start just setting the context a little bit differently from our view as customer service and customer experience professionals. If you look at the problems we've solved, and this really dovetails with Kate's statements earlier, we spent the last decade trying to catch up with these channels. Email became prevalent, websites became usable, chat exploded and took off, and so we've quickly tried to plug the gaps and get the data across. We tried to do this 360 view of the customer, if you will. That for the email agent, for the person in the store, trying to make sure everybody had a view of who that customer is. And as the channel rate continues to just go exponentially and social channels explode and appear almost daily, that becomes almost an impossible task. So as we talk to people, we talk about shifting that view for two reasons. One, Kate talked about the power of the customer, the impact of social, the impact of that on that of the voice of the customer, the strength, the power of the customer. They're demanding that you understand how they want to communicate with you. And mobility, of course, makes that much easier for them to do anywhere, anytime. And I think, frankly, Steve Jobs, with the concept of simplicity, has really set in people's minds this doesn't have to be hard to use this technology or to buy things or to interface with items. So we think that's shifting to this 360 view of the company, if you will. What that really means is us as customer experience people, and you'll see that with voice of the customer experts or people that are mapping customer journeys, really looking at what the customer expects out of the company. Now we're saying, let's take that and how do we actually create that inside the systems inside the company? How do we actually build those journeys? And I think the good news is we have a lot of this out there already, right? We've solved a lot of this. There's been a lot of work that's gone into the voice channel about the best way to answer a billing call or the best way to handle tech support and help somebody get through a challenge they have with their cable modem. I think websites many of them do an exceptional job of offering complex products and letting you drill in by a product or a service, easily doing add-ons and choosing add-ons. So a lot of that capability is there. I think the question is, as Kate said, how do you make it consistent across the channels, right? We have these interactions, if you will. We figured out the right way to do it. We're still figuring out social, maybe to some degree, but there is, I think, a very good, because marketing took the lead on it, there is a good handle on brand and the brand experience and driving leads and the marketing side of the equation in social. Mobile is new on the table, and people are learning how to take advantage of mobile, what it does to this whole equation, and it's introducing a sea change in the whole thing. I think the other key is, as Kate called out, customers are really expecting consistency, and this kind of consistency across the channels, you can say it's transferring data with call, but it's more than that. It's this concept that maybe before I go to work, I start on my home PC and I start configuring an order. I start changing my home service. I run out of time and I have to leave. I want to pick that up in the mobile, and not only do I want you to be aware that I was already doing that transaction and I was halfway through it, but I want to start off and I want to see the products offered the same way. I want to see the same discounts, the same different offers that were applicable because I was coming in through my home connection. And if I get in trouble, then I want to shift over to an agent in the call center. And I may do that now. I may put it on hold and wait until my first break at work. It may be 20 minutes later or 2 hours later. But I really want to have then a conversation with the agent that picks up where I left off. I as a customer, I'm thinking of this as a session. I'm not thinking of this as a contact. I'm not thinking of it as a call. So we would even argue, and this may be a discussion for a whole other webinar, But it isn't as much about first call or first contact resolution these days, because again, that's us trying to use a channel efficiently as a company. It's about getting the customer through that session, through that journey that Kate showed of buying, and letting them walk through it step by step when and where they want to, and making sure it's very efficient for them, right? So I would argue the challenge isn't just getting that data out there and making sure that we've got a good view of that person and we're offering them the same offer on every channel. It's letting them step through that journey very, very seamlessly and very simplistically. So it's a pretty big challenge even without mobile. Why mobile now, right? Why do I have to deal with it? A lot of people have smartphones. There will be, there's a prevalence of people starting to use smartphones, but what's really pushing us to that now? And I think there's really two reasons you need to look at that now. One is what's happening with mobility. When Kate showed you one view of the numbers, there's a lot of different analysts that have different views. We've taken this sort of from Forrester and others. But if you look at the expectations of smartphones and tablets going forward, as you look out into 2015, we're not only saying people are buying more smartphones and tablets than they do laptops and desktops. There will be more smartphones and tablets that people use than there are laptops and desktops. So in a couple of short years, we went from smartphones being a luxury item for business people to them becoming the primary device people use day to day for communication, for entertainment, for managing their life, for everything they do. And the way people utilize technology is fundamentally changing with the introduction of apps and apps in app stores. Software isn't something you go to the store and buy and put on a computer or even go to a website and use a live experience on a website anymore. It's something you can just click on an icon and try. It may cost you nothing. It may cost you 99 cents. You throw it away. And so the experience model people have is fundamentally changing, and this really is a lot of what's driving the simplicity expectation. They expect to be able to go to a store, click on something, try it, see if it works for them or not. And to underscore this, there's a lot of different surveys out there. But give you an example, Nielsen. In the U.S., they track TV ratings and who's watching TV shows. They're actually tracking at this point that for a couple of those age demographics that Kate showed you, people are using mobile apps on tablets and smartphones more than they're watching primetime TV. So if you think about this, it's becoming the environment people are starting to live in for, again, media, communications, et cetera. So it's exploding. It's not a 5-year or a 10-year adoption. It's an 18-month adoption. We've talked to a number of CIOs, and we started a year ago talking about this being a 2015 problem, and they talk about it as a 2013 problem. So I think you'll see this exploding fairly rapidly if you haven't already. The second I think about this is mobility offers us, it's another challenge, it's another channel, but I think it offers us a great opportunity from a solution perspective as well. Why? Because it's a very powerful and very personal device. There's a lot you can do to take advantage of that device. So for example, we talked to, a head of marketing and a CIO with a big media company over in Europe. And they see this, the ability of this to get very, very personal. So based on your location on the device, if they're offering movies, they're offering media content, based on your location, they may recommend and offer to you a different set of offers. That's a pretty wowing experience. And instead of putting up, would you like to see a movie, a horror movie today, they could actually ask you a question. Are you on a date night? Are you at home? And just with a couple of simple questions and a little bit of personalization, they can very, very quickly narrow down and offer you the content you want. And that's a fairly wow experience. And there's a lot of examples around that, using the capabilities of the device. Another good example, making it effective, right? I think there's an opportunity with those capabilities in the smartphone and in the tablets to really, really make it an effective self-service channel because you can do a lot more with it. Some simple examples, we talk to a lot of people in the communications area about what we can do to make tech support easier. That whole classic fixing your home cable modem. That call can cost a ton of money when people call in and try and fix that. And there's some help out there with FAQs on the website, but really if you can start to drive a troubleshooting script or an interaction out there to the phone, and you can let that customer take a snapshot with their camera of the serial number of the modem and then automatically give them a customized script to help fix that modem, then you've gone a great way towards avoiding a call, avoiding a problem, and giving them an ability to service themselves very, very quickly and very easily. Additionally, I think it's an opportunity for us to use it as a bridge to get to all those other channels, right? Because it's so context aware, because it's so personal, we know about your location, we know about what you're doing in the context of where you are. It just makes it a much richer platform to be able to share information. So when Kate talked about transferring that call to the call center and passing the data with it, you can pass a lot more context with that as well beyond just what's the last piece of data I entered on the form. So we see mobility as an opportunity to go after this, but I think the key is to this, we have to look at all those existing assets we've got and leverage them as part of the solution. Otherwise, you're going to have to try and recreate everything from scratch, and that I don't think is affordable. So what's our final suggestion here? After talking to people, depending how you want to adopt it, it makes a ton of sense to start looking at having a single customer experience platform, a customer interaction platform, have a single point that answers the customer's question, handles their objections about a sale, configures the product, presents the product to them, one point that they interact with that leverages all those existing assets. It can pull the content out of the content systems. It can follow a script in a knowledge management system. It has the data from the ticketing system. But it's one place where you're actually scripting that customer journey. You're describing the experience you want them to have as they move around channels. And we'd argue you need to make that available to them in a form that the business can actually immediately impact. Things are transitioning far too quickly out there. Competitors are changing. Channels are appearing. It isn't about an IT cycle anymore. It's about getting a flexible tool out there to the business. Let them change these interactions and react on the fly, but have a comfort knowing they're doing it in a way that it's not going to create an inconsistent experience if they just change an agent voice script, right, like they would today. Give them a platform they can go in, change that interaction once, and have it appear across all these different channels seamlessly. So that said, trying to respect your time, wanted to keep it to 10 or 15 minutes. We think there is an answer to this. Certainly we have been working on it here, and we have a good piece of the answer. There is an ability to come to our website and even try it if you'd like. We've made it very easy. It should be about a 10-minute download for you. And then feel free. Please play with it, see what the experience is that you can create. And then you can talk to us again later about that in terms of how to take that to a full environment across all the channels. So with that, we're going to take questions from people that have either you've already submitted through the chat channel or questions that you want to submit at this point. And I'll hand it back to Lee and let him handle those questions.
Thank you, Steve, for your information on mobile customer service experience. We'll now refer to our question and answer window to field any questions you may have for Kate or for Steve. Please type your questions in the Q&A window, and I'll address those questions to our presenters. Our time is growing short, so I'll just get to a few real quick. The first one to come in is, in your experience, are companies consolidating the number of mobile apps they have, or does each division within an organization have their own app? They said they keep hearing about app fatigue, so they're wondering how companies can overcome this. That's a good question for you, Kate.
Good question. Like that, I showed a circular diagram in one of my slides and said there's very little coordination between marketing, sales, and customer service. And these organizations really work as functional silos. And I'm actually seeing that extend into a company's mobile strategy, where there's a lack of coordination between the different functional groups. For example, I've seen examples where marketing may be more focused on providing a mobile app for brand awareness and brand engagement, or as a way to target customers with contextual offers. And then e-commerce may end up having their own app. And then in some cases, customer service may end up having one too. And what has to happen is you have to start at the top and have a comprehensive engagement strategy with your customers. Put yourself in your customer's shoes. And then, again, as you work out this coordinated strategy across touch points, which include mobility and mobile apps across communication channels, you want to be able to consolidate all mobile efforts into one. And again, to provide these efficient, frictionless experiences that customers demand out of the company. I know, Steve, do you have a comment on that?
No, I find it interesting. The app fatigue question, I think there's still some confusion about end consumers versus B2B type applications or B2C type applications. There's a lot of data about app fatigue around games and different games, and there are some challenges with companies trying different apps and having 7, 10, 15 different apps available. I think that's data from the early days. Now that there's getting to be maturity around how a company should build an app and deploy it, I think it's getting better, but I think the best practices really are, if we're talking about that simplicity of an experience, you really should try and create a holistic app that gives a customer a single view to the company. And that seems to be echoed by a number of the people that I'm talking to. It's pretty rare that they're looking at developing new apps at this point or multiple apps.
Okay, let's get to another couple of questions. Our time is going short, so we'll have to be brief. Kate, in one of your slides, you showed that customer service managers agree that customer experience is important, but our attendee asked, how do they sell this to the organization when a primary focus is the economic times and cost cutting?
Good question. So focus on the positives and negatives. So to be really brief, we have data that you can leverage from Forrester that good customer experiences correlate to customer satisfaction, increased loyalty, increased revenue. So that's part of the business case. The negatives are poor experiences affect customer retention, increased churn, negatively impact sales, increased operating costs. Our data shows that 3/4 of people who can't find their answer on a website will end up picking up the phone and calling the contact center. And just that duplication of interaction incurs costs. And so build your business case. You can definitely build a business case on cost savings, where you focus on the impact of poor customer experiences, as well as you can add in some bonus line items for increasing revenue. But there's definitely a lot of data around great customer experiences as well, and allowing companies to provide more efficient and cost-effective customer service.
Okay. Steve, a couple of questions I think that may best fit you. They ask, have you spoken with any customers who have taken on multi-channel, and how are they doing it?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about some. I think the interesting thing is people are approaching it based on the assets they have. They're approaching it based on the challenge in front of them, where their biggest problem is. So some who are looking at this, holistically and starting with from the ground up from an experience perspective, really look at it and say, we put a lot of effort into our IVR as a way to categorize call types and how people want to communicate with us. Let's start there, map that out, and turn that into sort of a customer service tree in the app, if you will, and then talk about how we can expand that and extend it and take advantage of the phone capabilities. Others, maybe starting with a particular business unit or touch point or piece of the experience. For example, we have one, we started with sales and really making sure that the sales interaction was seamless with the voice agents and getting that down and perfect. And now we're talking about, okay, how do you take that to the retentions agents to make sure that experience, if I want to change my service, is the same? How do I then take that to the website and then out to the mobile environment? So I really think you can take it from either an opportunity perspective on a call type basis or an organization basis, if you will, or you can take it from a holistic experience and sort of work your bottom up.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions here that I might can combine. The question is, you mentioned about passing information from the mobile device to a customer service rep. How is Jacada doing that from a technology perspective? Another question is about banking and visual-ivr. So maybe you can answer both those questions together.
About banking and visual-ivr. Okay, so passing the data into the company and getting it to that agent, there's a lot of ways to do it. Typically, it's called CTI. At the lightest level, we'll work with existing IVRs, and we'll pass the data through an existing IVR. Maybe we do some modifications to that IVR to make it a bit more efficient, but we'll get the data through there. Otherwise, the different switch vendors have a number of interfaces we can use to identify which agent's going to get the call, and then we basically park that data. When the call gets to the agent desktop, you pull it back and restart that interaction at the agent side. Lee, what was the question on banking and visual-ivr to make sure I answered that correctly?
Well, they asked how to reconcile the bank's mobile solution with visual-ivr, but I'm not sure. I guess they're asking about integrating visual-ivr in an instance for a banking situation.
Got it. So a lot of what we're talking about is the ability to take some of these more complex decision trees or self-support solutions, interactions you might put out on the mobile phone, and making sure the interaction platform speaks something like VXML to be able to talk to the IVR. That way you can have one implementation of that interaction. So maybe you take that implementation out of the IVR, put it into an interaction that gets shared across the mobile and the IVR environment, if you will.
Okay. We have a question, Kate, about one of the slides in your presentation. So your presentation clearly highlighted the importance of the customer experience and how it makes it more difficult because of all the multiple channels. But one of your slides mentioned that only around 20% of companies are doing multi-channel integration over the short term. So what do you think this picture will look like in a longer time frame, and what would the catalyst be to force companies to invest more in multi-channel integration?
The picture's going to look a lot better. Companies need to support their customers across the engagement journey, which is multiple communication channels. And if you don't offer experiences in line with customer demands, your customers are going to leave. They're going to end up defecting. And I think that's going to be the trigger for companies to start investing in better communication channels and infrastructure.
Okay, and one last question, I guess this may be yours, Steve, which is with these type of solutions, I guess you're referring to the mobile solutions or the JMA solution. Can you briefly talk about the return on investment that can be expected from these type of multi-channel solutions?
Hey, I think Kate may have hit that earlier when we talked on the funding question. I think maybe to make it a bit more specific, certainly anything you do as self-service on the mobile, and anytime you use the additional capabilities of the mobile to address a complex problem, like resetting that cable modem as an example, you're avoiding a call. And I think Kate gave you the numbers, and you guys will have access to the slides after this. You can pretty easily build an ROI on call avoidance there. And then when you do have to get the call transitioning across channels, the session transitioning across channels, you end up at this point that if you have to start over from scratch, you're basically paying the cost of walking through a spent journey. It's part customer expectation that you're missing, but it's the time engaging the channel as well, and there's costs associated with that. So our experience, just typing the type of call and getting who the customer is and their basic question that they want to answer and getting that across to an agent before the call starts can save you anywhere minimally 30 seconds, probably 60 seconds per call. And then the more you get into that and the more you provide that self-service capability on the channel and the more data you can bring across, clearly you can save more time because you're starting farther into that session with the customer, if you will. So we've seen people save minutes on calls doing this.
Okay, that's great, Steve. Thank you, Steve and Kate. We've got to wrap it up because our time is going short. So once again, thank you for attending today's webinar, Embracing the Mobile Channel to Deliver an Exceptional Customer Experience. We'd like to especially thank Kate Leggett of Forrester Research for joining us today and presenting. A replay of the webinar will be available shortly on our website, so please visit jacada.com and join our email list to receive a notice when the replay of the video of the webinar will be available. Once again, this concludes today's webinar, and thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day.